It's Thursday, August 7th, 2025. Good evening, and welcome to the daily happenings inside our federal machine. This is Spathon, and it's time to plunge into the swamp to see what's happened over the last 24 hours. President Trump declared August 7th National Purple Heart Day. The FBI also approved Senator John Cornyn's request to pursue and capture the runaway Democrats from Texas. President Trump also launches a federal security blitz in Washington, D.C. in order to crack down on crime across the city. Nancy Pelosi, she's calling for gender-affirming care, because of course she is. Anyway, so Governor Ron DeSantis, he's announced his intent to eliminate property taxes for all primary residences across the state of Florida, which will alleviate roughly 65% of the Florida population. So we'll look into that. Also, President Trump, he instructed the Department of Commerce to begin work on a new and more accurate national census, which will not include illegal immigrants. Democrats are claiming they were locked inside ICE facilities while visiting and were not allowed to leave, and we will learn from the Department of Homeland Security themselves what really happened during their visit. And there's lots more to dig through, so we're going to dive right in. And if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And I might read your comment on the next episode if you decide to drop one. So let's just dig right into it. From Fox News, White House launches federal security blitz as president vows to end D.C. crime plague. We're going to check this out from foxnews.com. And I think we got the text. We're good. Of course, Fox News has their pop-ups and everything. All right, so in an effort to crack down on crime in the nation's capital, President Donald Trump is ramping up federal enforcement in Washington, D.C., and deploying additional federal law enforcement agents this week. Backed by a March executive order, the White House, respective federal agencies, and local officials will work together to drive down D.C. crime. D.C. residents can expect an increase in federal enforcement starting as early as this Friday, tomorrow. Washington, D.C., quote, this is from the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, quote, Washington, D.C. is an amazing city, but it has sadly been plagued by petty and violent crime for far too long. And let's see. Oh, well, she actually wrote that in a statement, but, what's the difference? President Trump is committed to making our nation's capital safer and more beautiful for its residents, lawmakers, and visitors from all around the world. Not just visitors, man, but diplomats, world leaders, bureaucrats, ambassadors. I mean, there's all kinds of high-level people that visit D.C. on a routine basis. I mean, that's obvious. So you'd think that, if anything, D.C. should be damn near the safest, the cleanest, the most presentable city in the entire country, but it's quite the opposite. I wonder if it has to do with the fact that the vast majority of people who vote in Washington, D.C., they vote Democrat, because of course they do. So anyway, Trump on Monday threatened to federalize Washington, D.C., calling for local minors and gang members over the age of 14 to be prosecuted as adults after a former Department of Government Efficiency employee reported being violently beaten in the city by two juveniles. He goes by Big Balls. I think most of us are quite aware of who he is by now, at least his nickname. When that story first broke, they said that he was attacked by 8 juveniles, not 2. And speaking of which, I personally believe that the parents should be charged as closely to equal as possible with regard to a crime that their minor son or daughter commits, especially if it's after curfew. If they sneak out of the house or if they're out of the house, I mean, I think President Trump should probably just set the curfew at 9 p.m. I think that's crazy. Well, not crazy, but I think that's a little early, especially for summertime. I was a kid once. I ran wild too. I didn't commit any crimes, but I certainly stayed out at least until the streetlights came on, and I tried to be out as late as possible. Even though by the time I was 14 years old, we were a little, you're a little old for the whole streetlight nonsense. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I think they should, if your son commits armed robbery at 11:30 at night, it's past curfew. Well, since the parent, they're responsible for their child, and if they commit armed robbery against somebody, well, I think the parent should be charged as an accomplice because they're not watching over their kids, and their kids are fully the parent's responsibility. So let me know in the comments if that's reasonable or not. I mean, I think it's reasonable. So anyway, let's just read a little bit more of this before we move on. I got a lot to get into today. So a White House official told Fox News Digital the effort to revitalize the Capitol has been an ongoing priority for the president, who established the D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force through the Making the District of Columbia Safe and Beautiful executive order. I think that's Trump's favorite word, is it not? Beautiful. It's beautiful. Everything's beautiful. The big beautiful bill. Anyway, let's see if there's anything else here. So federal officials, they're going to monitor D.C. sanctuary city status to ensure compliance with federal immigration law and support the full accreditation of the district's forensic crime laboratory to aid local investigations. And I will link this article as there is a bit more operational details not been finalized as of Thursday afternoon. So the task force made progress and so on and so forth, arresting illegal immigrants and whatnot. So that will be linked in the description. Every article you see me pull up throughout the video, every single one is linked down in the description. That's why I always leave them open in my tabs as a reminder. So let's move straight on to RT. We're hoping to have gender-affirming care, stuttering Nancy Pelosi confirms it won't work, but at least they have a nice trans flag outside their Congress office. You think she still lives in 2020? Probably.
How is your office responding to the pauses in gender-affirming care here in California?
Well, that is something that I'm working for at the
she is such a
national
nightmare.
level, and we have
Decrepit old nightmare.
how can I say, are hoping that we can have gender-affirming care for our trans kids, and that it's a sad thing for us. I'm not totally
Our trans kids, you brain dead lunatic.
I don't know what effect we can have nationally with what we have going on in the White House and in the Congress.
Well, how about you survey the American people and ask the American people how many support gender-affirming care for minors? Let's see if there's anything. Actually, let me just do this. Yeah, let me just grab it from here. How many? Let's see what Grok might come up with. Recent survey showed varied public opinion on gender-affirming care for minors in the U.S. Let's see. 2023 poll found that 62% of cisgender adults. I don't care about those numbers. I only care about the general population. What percentage of the American population is cisgendered? I have a feeling it's probably below 5%. 79% of transgender adults support, well, yeah, duh, because they're already transgender. They want more people to join their community. Anyway, puberty blockers, yada, yada, general ban. 60% of U.S. adults, oppose laws banning gender-affirming care for minors, with only 34% supporting such bans. A Gallup poll. So I have doubts about that. What do you think? Do you think that the majority of the country really believes that it's okay to allow a minor child to transition from a boy to a girl or vice versa? I somehow doubt that. I somehow doubt that many of Americans are on board with this. Let's see. Bipartisan divide, personal connection. What should I do? Should I change it to what percentage of normal adults? Or what percentage of parents? That's who they should really be surveying, is the percentage of parents who have children, the ones who actually have a vested interest in what happens with regard to laws pertaining to minors. Let's see. Stronger support for counseling, less for medical interventions like puberty blockers or surgeries. It's so ridiculous and convoluted. Like, I have to fine tune it to the umpteenth degree to be able to get something decent. Not counseling. The counseling's fine. I think it's fine. Not affirming counseling. I don't want them to go to a counselor that's an affirming counselor, because that just means that the counselor is going to affirm whatever it is that they believe to be true. And I think that's extremely counterproductive. So, let's see. Let me think. Let's see. I don't like the way I worded that, but I'm kind of in a hurry here. I'm just curious. Interviewed parents of 39 minors seeking gender-affirming care. See, they're not going to give me. 72% said they felt pressured or rushed into treatment. 59% of registered voters, which includes parents, support a federal ban on puberty blockers. Okay, so the majority do. I just have a feeling the number's higher than that. It's just my opinion. Noted that 47% of adults who know a transgender person, see, they're just getting so convoluted with this. They're getting just like really far into the weeds with this. I just want the simple number. Like, what percentage of the American population support this? Across the board. Maybe that's what I should have said. Across the board. Cisgender adults. Likely under 40% of parents would strongly support puberty blockers for minors. That's insane, dude. That is so insane. All right, well, I thought I was going to get a pretty definitive answer with regard to that, but I guess not. But all right, anyway, here, let's finish this up.
It's really very
Psycho
sad.
Pelosi.
If you were there, outside our door, we have a trans flag.
Oh, of course you do.
Outside of our door in the
because you're one of the cult leaders.
Congressional office building, we have the trans flag, as do some of our other colleagues. But that view is not necessarily shared by people on the other side of the aisle.
What? That everybody should just be transgender? Look, a lot of people on the other side of the aisle, they believe in live and let live. If that's what you want to do with your own personal life, fine. That's okay. Just don't make it anybody else's business. Don't make it my children's business, especially. And don't make it my business. That's all. Look, I mean, I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have a problem if a transgender person were to use one of those bathrooms, you know, those family bathrooms where it's just like one at a time kind of deal and they've got the change-in station in there or whatever. I think maybe most people probably wouldn't have a problem if they were to occupy that and go to the bathroom. But going into the women's bathroom, things like that, no. The majority of the country, I don't think is going to get on board with that. But that's just my own personal opinion. All right, don't attack me for it. It's just an opinion. I'm not saying ban all transgenders. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying live and let live. Just don't make it my business. That's all. Or don't get me directly involved. So if my daughter's going to the bathroom, don't walk right behind my daughter if you're a man. That's all. Because then it will be my business. As I think pretty much any other parent would agree to that. All right. Let's move on. I don't want to get too controversial. I just want to read what's going on today. Freaking Nancy Pelosi, she's already driving this freaking show off the rails. All right, so from Breaking 911, wow, New York Post publishes scathing report quoting aides of Rep. Jasmine Crockett. Quote, she is laying around her apartment, won't come into the office, and is really just indifferent to staff and will scream at them. Her transport vehicle has to be an Escalade. Good grief, man. I'm sure she's not paying for that. I'm sure the lovely taxpayers are having to pay for that. Do other Congress members drive Escalades or ride in Escalades? I highly doubt it. They're probably in what, like Chevy Tahoes or something like that. Anyway, she expects her staff to drive her around while she's in the back seat, treating the staffer like an Uber driver. She is never in the office and is very disengaged. She does her bowls that goes viral and then freaks out over the most random things. It is widely known that she's not nice to staff and is just not a really dedicated member focused on constituents. She is focused almost exclusively on being an influencer, not a member of Congress. And this was reported by the Washington Post. Oh shit, it's starting to rain outside. Very heavy raindrops. So, I actually, you know what? I think it is down here. I think they actually did link it in down here below. Yeah, they did. I thought they did. So I will open that up. We got the gist of it just from the Post, but it'll be in the description if you want to get into the nitty-gritty details, especially if she happens to be your representative. I mean, God forbid. All right. So let's head down to the next post here. We're going to go down to, nope, not yet. One more. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, she sounds like another raving lunatic. So this is from the White House. President Trump delivers his remarks from August 7th, 2025. I believe this is also in reference to him declaring August 7th National Purple Heart Day. If I have time at the end of this episode, I'll give it a play. It's about 17 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, maybe about 20 minutes. It's not 4 minutes, 46 seconds. Let me just take a quick look. Actually, it's 23 minutes, 23:38. So, and I will get into a little bit of info with regard to him meeting with the press today and the National Purple Heart Day. We've got a couple of posts regarding that, including this one from Rep. Anna Paulina Luna. She's my rep in Congress, so I figured I might as well feature her post as opposed to other members of Congress because she's my Congress member. Now, if you go on X, there are tons and tons of members of Congress. I think every single one of them posted Happy National Purple Heart Day. In fact, I thought it was going to be difficult to get really enough information to do a show today because the feed was just so flooded with them, which is a good thing. I'm not opposed to that at all. I think it's wonderful. It's great. I think they absolutely should declare today National Purple Heart Day. I'm honestly surprised that there wasn't a National Purple Heart Day already. I mean, it's been around since George Washington, if I'm not mistaken. Purple Heart's been around forever. So anyway, Rep. Anna Paulina Luna says, Happy National Purple Heart Day, especially to my amazing husband. He was shot in the leg on his second deployment, but made a full recovery and continued to deploy. Damn, dude, he's a badass. Only to be later awarded a Bronze Star for a separate incident. Yeah, man, he is an elite badass. Awesome. And he's got a very hot wife, too. All right, so let's go on to DoD rapid response. Happening now, President Trump has signed the proclamation declaring today National Purple Heart Day. So we'll watch that. 31 seconds. Again, it's probably in that 23-minute video, which is why I'm, for now, going to skip over it. But if there's any time left over at the end, then I'll give some of that a play, including maybe some Q&A if he takes any questions from the press. So here we go.
And that is not done by an auto pen.
No, it wasn't. He just said that the other day, too. No auto pen. Authentic. Signed by the president himself, not by a machine. I think the fact that he keeps saying that, I'm wondering if they're actually going to be digging into, matter of fact, I think that the feds are already digging into the whole Joe Biden auto pen thing, but I have a strange feeling that maybe by the end of this year, we might actually see some conclusions, perhaps, or at least some announcements with regard to Joe Biden's pardons and if they're actually going to be voided. I imagine it would probably go to the Supreme Court. If I were to guess, I would assume that's probably where it's going to end up. So let's move on to the next. From the New York Post, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard revealed she believes aliens may exist, but wouldn't share any details about what the government knows when appearing on the latest episode of Pod Force One with Miranda Devine. Subscribe here. I'll open it and link it if you want to check that out yourself. I'm not too crazy into UFOs and aliens and stuff. I mean, I'm fascinated and obsessed with astronomy, and I absolutely believe that there's aliens out there for sure. I just think that they're not visiting us just yet because the universe is extremely vast. It's as far as we know, it's impossible to break light speed. And yeah, the closest habitable planets that we believe that could be within Earth's reach reasonably is like 20 light years away, which would take tens of thousands of years with our current travel. But even with aliens and all that, I mean, our universe is extremely young. It's extremely young. And I frankly just think that we're the smartest ones out there right now, despite the fact that we have 200 billion galaxies out there, each one having 200 billion stars in each one, if not more. I mean, Andromeda's got 1 trillion stars, so some are bigger, some are smaller. But if you scale the entire universe across a 100-year human lifetime, let's say that the death of the universe is on its 100th birthday if it were a human. Throughout its entire lifetime, and by the death, I mean like when the last star burns out, not when it really dies, like when the stelliferous era is over. When there's no more stars, the last one burned out. That's when it reaches its 100th birthday. In that scale, currently, the universe is only 10 minutes old in a 100-year human lifetime. So it's a baby. So that's just my opinion, that we're the only ones out there that have any level of intelligence that's capable of reaching outer space, let alone traveling through it, long distances, interstellar and whatnot. But let's see what she says about this. It's short, 47 seconds. I mean, we'll get the gist of what the New York Post is saying here.
My husband is in the corner for the record, pumping his fist right now that you're asking this question.
So, I mean, is there anything, we've had some declassification of some very strange videos that look like they are, unidentified flying objects. Is there anything in the files that you think you could find or you have found?
Nothing that I'm prepared to talk about today.
Ooh. So watch this space.
Yeah. Okay.
Say what?
Watch this space.
She's probably not read anything that the public has probably already not been made aware of. tic-tac-toe or tic-tac UFOs and things of that nature out in the Pacific Ocean around the U.S. Navy. Maybe a little bit of Roswell information, but I'm assuming that Tulsi Gabbard's probably a little bit preoccupied with other matters to be going digging in old files looking for UFOs and aliens and all that. Maybe she has. Maybe she took some time over the weekend. I somehow doubt it.
We are
Who knows?
I'm just going to say this.
Only she knows.
Yeah, we're continuing to look for the truth and share that truth with the American people.
All right. Aliens, UFOs, Pod Force 1, Miranda Devine or Devine. So you can check that out. It will be linked below if you want to take a listen or watch or, well, obviously they had it on camera, so I'm sure that you'd be able to watch it if you go over there and check it out. So let's bring this back up to size here. So from Eric Daugherty, I agree. Abolish property taxes everywhere. This is in reference to Governor Ron DeSantis's huge announcement that he is looking to put a stop to property taxes across the state of Florida. I think that's a bit bold. I think on one hand, it's a great idea. On the other hand, that could potentially make the housing market much worse in the way that it will probably open up the floodgates to another mass amount of people that will migrate down here, just looking to take advantage of that in one way or another. We saw the great migration down into Florida during 2020, 2021, and it was devastating to our housing economy. I mean, like housing just more than doubled in probably just like a year or two. It was a catastrophe for those of us who've lived here most of our lives. But anyway, so Ron DeSantis, to say you're just enjoying property and all of a sudden the value goes up, you have to pony up to the government. We don't really do that in anything else. If they're going to come tell you your house is worth twice as much than what you purchased it, and you've got to pay higher taxes as a result, that's a negative of having rising property values. It's an unrealized gain. If you buy a stock and you hold it, then you're taxed when you sell it, which you do, capital gains tax. The stock doubles. They don't just tax you as you hold it. Unrealized gains is not the way you want to run a tax system, but our property tax system basically relies on these unrealized gains. So I guess my first question would be is how's the state level funding going to occur with regard to public education? Because our education system, it's funded by property taxes unless something changed, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. As well as other things, I'm sure there's other local things that property taxes pay into. Not to say I'm against this. I'm not necessarily against it. I don't see how this is going to help the 35 to 40% of people who are renting in Florida, because those properties will not be included in this no property tax thing. I think if anything, with the exception of commercial, I think anything with regard to residential, they should just alleviate the property taxes. I mean, by doing this, they're already getting rid of like 65% of all property taxes as it is. Might as well just go all the way and alleviate it for everybody. But we'll just have to see how it goes. I just have a feeling, damn, dude, some loud ass thunder outside. But yeah, we'll just have to see. I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, I'm not a homeowner, so I guess that I probably would naturally have that position. Like, how does that pertain to renters? Because people who own homes and have owned homes for a while, they're not really in as dire straits as people who are renting, or people who just recently bought their house in the last few years and they're paying like $2,800 mortgages, $3,000 mortgages. I mean, of course, they could be alleviated a bit, but the vast majority of people who own homes in Florida, yes, their property taxes are crazy. Yes, a lot of them are suffering. A lot of them are on fixed incomes. So I'm just not sure if that's going to be the cure-all when it comes to our housing market. I think, frankly, with regard to property costs and values and whatnot, it's only going to make it go up higher if they alleviate the property taxes. But let me just take a quick look. I'm just curious. We're getting some pretty close lightning outside, so I just want to take a look and see what's going on. Oh, yeah. We are lit. Oh, shit. It's not raining that hard here. All right, so, well, not really. I'm in this general area. Like, I'm like right around that circle there, so we're just barely getting missed. But yeah, there's some lightning happening. It should be moving out into the Gulf. As it is, finally, it hadn't rained here in like 2 weeks, man. We're in the dead center of the rainy season, and we went through a dry spell, and we're finally getting some action today, man. Getting lit up. Yeah, lightning. That's the one that I just heard that hit real close by. And that was 7:32, and right now it's 7:34. So, all right, anyway, whatever. You don't give a shit about that. Just curious. God forbid I lose power, happens. Happens at least a couple times a year. So anyway, let's check out this video and let's see what Ron DeSantis has to say about this.
The folks here really deserve. And, I look about people here. Every time I run into someone, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm a Florida resident now. Like people, when did you buy, where are you at? And they'll be like, oh, I'm in Santa Rosa Beach. When did you buy the property? Oh, I bought it in 2018. I'm like, you've made a lot of money off that property since then because the values have gone up. And while there's good for that because people that own it have more equity and have more wealth, the reality is if they're going to come tell you your house is worth twice as much than what you purchased it and you got to pay higher taxes as a result, that's a negative of having rising property values. And it's an unrealized gain. You sell your house, it's one thing on a transaction for someone to say to tax, like a sales tax, but to say you're just enjoying property.
I get it. Governor DeSantis, the issue that I have and a lot of other locals have is let's use Tampa for an example. The average household income in Tampa is about $72,000 a year. However, the average amount of money that you would have to make as a household to afford the average priced house in Tampa, you would have to earn a household income of $106,000 a year. That's the problem that a lot of us are having because the value of the house is going up. Yeah, he's right. People who own houses, they're doing really well with home equity and things like that. However, for anybody, especially the younger Americans, you got to think Gen Z and still millennials should still be considered because they're in their 30s and some are in their 40s at this point, or a few of them, I guess. I mean, most are still in their 30s. But with the cost of housing, with the average household income being significantly less than you need to qualify for just the average priced house, otherwise a bank won't give you a loan. It's a major problem, and I don't know what that's going to look like down the road. I don't see it getting any better. The only thing I could see is that younger Americans are going to get a lot more jaded when it comes to that. And politically speaking, Democrats, they're the only ones that are talking about housing being extremely expensive, and we got to figure out a way to get it down. Republicans are not talking about that. They're like DeSantis. He's basically saying it's party time, except for the whole tax situation, which people will be glad about the whole taxes thing, but I don't see how that's going to help property values go down at all. If anything, it's probably going to send them up. So, I mean, how do you fix that? Maybe go to the local property appraisal offices and find out exactly why they raised so quickly and so fast. I think in the case of Florida, it's probably just the supply and demand at the time back in 21, 22, when prices skyrocketed because there were only like 8,000 houses that were on the market for sale across the entire state. But that's not happening anymore. Now there's this huge supply of houses. Last I checked, there's about 250,000 properties that are for sale right now on the market, and it's still going up. And that's going to continue being a problem, at least for local residents, because the average household income, it's $70,000, $80,000 per year, but you have to make over $100,000 to qualify for the house. So I don't see how that's going to fix everyday Floridians and everyday Florida residents who live here and want to buy a house here. It's only going to, in my opinion, I think it's only going to open up more opportunity for big corporations and big hedge funds and BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. Are they going to come in and start swooping up tons of houses because they're the only ones that can really afford it? Those and just like the top 10% of the most wealthy, but everybody else just simply can't afford it. I think that renters, the number of rentals is probably going to skyrocket over the next 5-6 years unless something happens with the property values. So it's kind of disappointing to hear that he's not willing to get into how we're going to try to figure out the whole property value situation, because was it artificially messed with? Did the local property appraisal offices, did they jack up the value of houses artificially in order to collect more property taxes? From what I understand, they're apparently doing that in Texas. And I think that Texas, the local property offices are under investigation for that, for potential fraud. So I don't know. We'll just have to see.
And all of a
But
sudden,
anyway,
the value, so you have to pony up. We don't really do that in anything else. I mean, you buy a stock, you hold it, and then you're taxed when you sell it. The stock doubles. They don't just tax you as you hold it. So unrealized gains is not the way you want to run a tax system, but our property tax system basically relies on these unrealized gains. So we're going to work hard to provide relief, but ultimately we can't, as elected leaders, deliver the relief without the voters approving it at the ballot box.
True.
And so just get ready. You're going to have an opportunity to do that.
And they'll probably
I'm sure
approve
it's
it.
going to be very favorably received.
Everybody
in
votes
Walton
for
County
less taxes.
and probably everywhere else, in this part of the state.
Yeah, that's I would almost certainly see that happening. That people are going to vote for that to happen if it makes it onto the ballot later this year, maybe even next year. Not so sure, but. Let me change that to residential. Just curious to see what the average amount is. Okay. The median annual property tax bill for Florida homeowners is around $2,338 to $2,386. So we're not talking huge money. We're not talking $10,000, $20,000. We're still talking a relatively low amount of money. So that's what, maybe $200 a month, $250 a month. That would be significant for me. If I could save $200-some a month with anything, that would be hella beneficial for me. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll just see. I have to see where that goes. And let's move on to the next one here. So from Secretary Sean Duffy, and this it's time for Newsom to pull the brake on California's $128 billion ghost train. And, of course, that's the high-speed rail train in California that never laid a single bit of track. And it is currently at a shocking $128 billion. Absolutely a financial catastrophe. I think all kinds of investigations should be getting opened up with regard to this. I mean, it stinks of fraud. Anyway, so it's not every day a state manages to burn through billions and still ask for more, but California's high-speed rail project has always been exceptional in that way. Last month, the federal government finally said enough, scrapping $4 billion in funding after years of missed deadlines, ballooning budgets, and political theatrics. You'd think that would halt the train, but instead, the state celebrated by tweeting about construction jobs and posting photos of rebar. Dude, they're insane, dude. This is never gonna happen. I would be shocked if it did. 10 years ago, I did the math and showed that for the price of California's high-speed rail project, we could fly every Californian round trip to Tokyo, buy them a bullet train ticket to Kyoto, and put them up for 2 nights at the Ritz-Carlton, and we'd still have money left over for sushi. Look, if they were to charge like $50 a ticket or $100 a ticket, I don't think that many people are going to take this train anyway. And even if they did, it's going to take centuries and centuries before they get enough money to the point where it pays for itself. It's $120 billion. It's never going to pay for itself. It's never going to happen. It's just not. I mean, plus, how many trains can you put on these rails anyway? Like, you could probably run them through every, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? So it's not going to be just a single train going one way or the other. They'll have multiple trains on the same rails, I imagine. It's still not going to be enough to come anywhere close to paying for itself. It's insanity. But anyway, a decade later, the bullet train still hasn't arrived, but the fantasy rolls on, powered by taxpayer dollars and bureaucratic inertia. With the federal spigot finally turned off, the California High-Speed Rail Authority responded not with humility, but with a victory lap, proudly tweeting that it had created 15,500 jobs on what it still calls America's only high-speed rail project. The image, a construction worker twisting rebar beside the American flag. I don't see the American flag there, but anyway, you could read it on for yourself. It's linked below, but we're going to move on to the next one because there's a lot to get through here. So this is with the U.S.-China Commission. With unlimited funds, how would you ensure the United States outpaces China with regard to space domain? And let's see, we'll hear from a few of these individuals. It is 4 minutes in length. It's a little bit long, but we'll see how they answer this.
A miracle happened, and Congress said, you can spend unlimited amount of money. Probably not going to happen in this environment, but
looks like
I'll give you
US
unlimited
Space
amount of
Force is
money,
here.
but you can only spend it on one thing. What would you spend it on?
Andrew Cox.
At least you made it a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, given some of the comments from General Saltzman
Gotta think
earlier
about that one.
and our testimony, one of the big things we worry about on the industry side
Dave
is
Cavosa.
lack of launch structure, infrastructure, and resiliency. You know, we are very much single-threaded through 2 launch facilities
Not
today in the
familiar with
United
him.
States for the most part, and additional funding is needed to build up more spaceport infrastructure.
Now let me just check and see who is it that we're listening to exactly. I don't know why I didn't put his credentials in here. Father, husband, space nerd, and a coach. Dude, what do you do? What do you do for a living? I'm confused here. Holy shit, man. That might have come through the microphone. That was very, very close lightning. Holy shit. All right, let's get back to it, man. Let's get back to it.
Say,
Oh, shit. All right, where were we?
Launch facilities today in the United States for the most part side is lack of launch structure, infrastructure, and resiliency. You know, we are very much single-threaded through 2 launch facilities
afraid
today
China's
in the
gonna
United
bomb our
States for
launch
the most
pads?
part, and additional funding is needed to build up more spaceport infrastructure.
Spaceport infrastructure. Interesting.
I'm going to cheat and give you 2. One is continue the track of acquiring resilient architectures. So you don't need new money if we just continue on that. So that's how I'm cheating. But I would say space domain awareness and command and control are becoming increasingly important for space operations. And those, at least near term, probably ought to be priority areas.
All right.
Yeah, from my side, I think it's a little bit cheating as well. It's a pretty broad category, but a broader variety of commercial contracts. One thing that worries me right now in the U.S. is that we are very much a space industry that is SpaceX and Starlink, and then everyone else is pretty far behind those two. And if we look at the Chinese commercial space industry, I mean, I always say, yeah, SpaceX is far ahead of the top Chinese commercial launch company. But if we look at the number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6 commercial launch companies, it's not so clear. And then if we look at, the number 40 commercial launch company, like there is no number 40 commercial launch company in the US. Maybe there doesn't need to be one, but there's a much broader and deeper commercial space sector in China than we realize. And I fear that that's going to be a problem when we only have like SpaceX and Starlink as our 2 far and ahead leading companies.
I agree with Brian about SSA and Blaine about needing to deepen the U.S. commercial sector. One of the things that really struck me when the Falcon 9 stopped working last summer is just basically U.S. launch stopped for a while. And, this is commercial, this is military, and there's ripple effects down the line. But if I were given the opportunity to say, okay, Congress is going to give us unlimited resources, financial resources, focus on active debris removal. The U.S., there's no U.S. entity in charge of that.
Look, I don't like that question anyway because, look, that's almost kind of them like lifting the mask a little bit off the Treasury with regard to they really do just believe that they have an unlimited amount of money, an unlimited printing machine, just digital money essentially that they can just super spend and just throw money at whatever they want, and there's just no consequence. Because a lot of these politicians are like, look, when the house of cards falls down, I'll be dead and in the ground anyway, so what do I care?
The U.S. hasn't really done a lot of that. Even the Europeans and the Japanese have invested money in doing missions that look at this sort of thing. The Space Force has done just some nominal, very small contracts, and frankly, the optics of the U.S. military space organization doing that is not great, given the dual-use nature of active debris removal. But it needs to happen.
Debris
it
removal
is essential to being able to continue to utilize space, and the U.S. government should be an anchor tenant at any kind of active debris removal stuff. Thank you.
I'm going to.
Yeah, well, I like she said, I believe she said that other countries are focused on trying to get a handle on that, and she's right. We really should be doing that, because with all the launches that we've done, I would imagine that the U.S. might be leading the world in terms of space debris. But yeah, that is not an easy thing. I know NASA's been working on that for many, many years, trying to figure out how they're going to be able to capture space debris. The space debris is traveling like 17,000 miles an hour. It's not as easy as it sounds, and a lot of them are just tiny little bits, like nuts and bolts and like pieces of paneling and just little debris. Especially, I think it was China. They had an incident where I don't think it blew up, but it's like in the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock. I want to say it was China. I don't think it was Russia, but they had an incident where there was like a minor collision and hundreds of pieces, not a million. It wasn't like the movie Gravity. It wasn't that insane, but they had an incident where a few hundred pieces just kind of splintered off of an object and just kind of got caught up in Earth's gravity or in orbit. So they had to catalog like a whole tons of pieces of space debris when that event happened. So it's problematic.
I'm going to try to cheat more than anybody at this table. I don't know if that's a competition or not. So first off, I would say we're not going fast enough in building resilient architecture. So if we want more money, we got to put more money towards it. The only real architectures that we've made resilient by design are missile warning, missile tracking, our SATCOM architectures, and we're just now starting on GPS. There's a whole host of things that we haven't touched that still have that giving China the first mover advantage that the chief talked about earlier. You can't do that without fixing launch, right? You can't proliferate without fixing launch. The second thing I do is focus on how do I hold my adversary stuffs at risk, right? The chief talked about that as well, right? We have a very, very scant investments in offensive and defensive space control that can hold our adversaries' capabilities at risk. That's the second big investment, and you can't do that without SSA.
All right. Well, that was an interesting conversation, making headway with regard to space travel, all that fun stuff. The Artemis missions, they're about to get up and running. Actually, it's been up and running. The astronauts, they're already training right now. I actually came across that on X yesterday. I'm reluctant to include the space stuff in here unless it pertains to like the Space Force, for instance. Or the reason I included this was because it had to do with U.S.-China Commission. But with regard to like the Artemis missions and things like that, I'm kind of reluctant because I'm not sure how many people who might be watching this may be interested in space flight and astronautics and all that stuff. But the astronauts, they are in training right now with the Artemis. They're going to send them up. I believe it's within the next year. It might be at the end of this year. They're sending them up into space. I want to say they're going in the Dragon capsule, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but they're going to orbit around the moon, and they're going to come back. It's a test flight of sorts. Not really, because they're actually going on a real mission, but that's the next step of the Artemis missions, with the end stage building a moon base. That's what they're working on. Real life, man. Ladies and gentlemen, we are building a moon base on the moon. That is actually happening. All right, so from the CIA, for more than 25 years, the CIA operated a secret airline that met the vast majority of the agency's requirements for covert, logistical, tactical, and denied area operations across Asia. Read about Air America right here. So this is on the CIA's website. Uh-oh. Very, very high level. So, let's see. The year was 1970. See, I'm not going to get into too much details here. Well, I mean, I can't read the whole thing. It's going to be a very lengthy article, I can only imagine. But it's definitely going to be linked below if you're interested in reading about some of the CIA history with regard to transportation. But anyway, the year was 1970, and the United States was in the thick of Southeast Asia conflict, having completed its latest flight mission. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger for y'all. The U.S. Air Force Raven pilot was in trouble. His O-1 Bird Dog aircraft had barely enough fuel to return to base, and bad weather over Laos was quickly closing in. Seized with the fear of slamming into a mountain, he contemplated a hard crash landing but knew it was too risky. His team called Air America. Maybe they would know what to do. Within minutes, 3 Air America helicopter pilots took off and flew in a trail just ahead of him. "Hey, Raven," the first called out over the radio. "I see you. Turn left. More. Roll out. You're pointed at the back door. The gap is right in front of you." "You're nuts. I don't see a damn thing except clouds and mountain." "It's an optical illusion. The gap is filled with heavy rain," the first helo pilot reassured him. With his heart in his throat, the Raven flew his small plane straight toward what he imagined to be the mountain, passing the hovering helicopter as he entered the point of no return. "Turn right and roll out. You are on track," instructed Helo 1. The airman hit heavy rain that pounded on his windscreen in a constant torrent. "I have him," said the second. "Turn left, roll out, slightly right. Watch out for that karst." The Raven dodged the rocky peak just below his left tire. Soon after, the second helo pilot no longer had a visual and exclaimed, "I lost him." "I've got him," replied the third. "Turn right, roll out. There, you're on an extended downwind. Good luck." As the Raven flew out of the danger zone, the choppers went on their way. That was the account of a former USAF Raven Forward Air Controller, FAC. FACs were fighter pilots who donned civilian attire and flew unarmed spotter planes low and slow over battlefields while calling in airstrikes on enemy targets. They shared the skies with Air America, and 4 decades later, this Raven clearly remembered the professionalism of the pilots who came to his rescue, living up to their motto: anything, anytime, anywhere, professionally. Very cool, man. Air America. So it goes into the history with Air America. They get into the Korean War, 1950. Looks like they even get back into the late 1940s, in fact. So, hell of a good article. I'm definitely going to read this later on this evening because this looks really fascinating. So, and again, it's right here on the CIA's website. So I don't know if they may have just recently declassified some of this information that I'm not 100% on. With so much going on throughout the day, I wish I had more time to read everything fully before I start recording, but I honestly just don't have time, man. There's just so much out there. So much going on, things constantly happening, constantly having to watch the feeds and everything. So I'll leave this linked down below for you to read if you feel like reading that. Looks like a hell of a good read. All right, so from Caroline Levitt, today at the White House, Trump to honor 100 Purple Heart recipients at the White House ceremony. This is from usatoday.com. 100 Purple Heart recipients at a special White House ceremony. Recipients who attended the ceremony included 3 veterans who sent their Purple Heart medals to Trump last year following the July 2024 assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. Wow, man, he invited them to the White House. That's awesome. President Donald Trump hosted nearly 100 Purple Heart recipients at the White House in recognition of veterans wounded in military action, including some who last year gifted their badges to Trump after he survived an assassination attempt when he was shot in the head. He wasn't grazed. I mean, yeah, technically he was grazed, but no. Full on was shot in the head, because I know the news, they like to downplay the hell out of that, but let's just call it for what it was. The bullet struck him in the head. I mean, come on. Anyway, the ceremony held in the White House East Room coincided with his signing a proclamation declaring August 7th National Purple Heart Day, which commemorates America's oldest military decoration, one that originated under President George Washington in 1782 to honor those killed or injured in combat. Recipients in attendance included 3 veterans, Thomas Mateo, Gerald Inter Jr., and John Ford, who sent their Purple Heart medals to Trump after the July 13th assassination attempt. Let's see. Gerald, John, and Thomas, I want to thank you very much, Trump said. What a great honor to get those Purple Hearts. I guess in a certain way, it wasn't that easy for me either when you think of it, but you went through a lot more than I did, and I appreciate it all very much. So there's a bit more to go through if you want to check that out. Again, linked below. So that happened today. It's very nice. Very, very cool. Exciting day today. A lot happening, including this post from Senate Republicans. Senator Ashley Moody of Florida welcomed Secretary of Education Linda McMahon to Florida to celebrate massive school choice wins. Florida is putting families first by giving parents the power to decide what's best for their children's education. This is a huge win, man. Very good, especially for parents.
Department of Education Secretary Linda McMahon, who was in Tampa Wednesday speaking alongside U.S. Senator Ashley Moody.
Florida has passed common sense laws that give parents control over their children's education, protecting them from DEI indoctrination and enabling students to learn freely.
The president's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill includes legislation, co-sponsored by Moody, that provides scholarships to K-12 families. These scholarships are funded by private donations. Donors get a federal tax credit, and eligible families get the money to put towards tuition at their school of choice.
And not just tuition. We forget about all those ancillary expenses that go along with it: transportation, books, technology, tutoring.
Yep, good news, man, and probably more states are going to follow that. I imagine they probably will. See, one thing, I'm not sure how unique that Florida is with regard to this. It might actually pertain to, it might differ depending on what county that you live in, but in the county that I live in, Pinellas County, they don't do districting. So if you live in a neighborhood, that doesn't mean that your children have to go to one specific school. When I grew up, when I was a teenager, I lived elsewhere, and we had districts, and they had the school bus routes and everything. If you lived in this neighborhood, you had to go to this school. If you wanted to go to a different school, you had to pay a tuition, which was thousands of dollars a year for just some average regular ass public school. We're not talking private schools or anything. So it might it might be different by state, but here, at least in the county I live in, you could choose any school you want to send your kids to. You just have to get them there and get them back, obviously. But I mean, I think that was great. I mean, we've had that version of school choice here for as long as I've been here. I mean, my daughter, she just graduated high school, so that's been the case since before she was born, at least. So anyway, let's move on to House Democrats. Trump and Republicans are gutting the VA workforce and slashing food and health care for veterans and their families. Oh, how dare they? Their big, ugly law cuts food assistance for more than 1 million veterans and reduces access to necessary health care services. House Democrats honor the contributions and sacrifices of our veterans and will always fight to ensure they have access to the resources they need. I somehow doubt that Democrats really care much about the veterans. You can kind of see that play out in California. How many veterans are homeless in California, by the way? Same with New York and all the other blue states. Probably a lot more than in red states. So let's just check this out from Doge AI. I mean, sometimes it gives some context as far as like the opposite view, or they might actually lift the veil and show what's actually going on. So anyway, the big beautiful bill prioritizes military strength and taxpayer value, exactly what America needs. While DC cries about cuts, they ignore the $150 billion defense boost, with $9 billion specifically for troop housing, childcare, and healthcare. SNAP reforms target waste, not veterans. Fraudulent claims drain resources from those who earned them. Real support means funding lethal capabilities, not bloated bureaucracy, and so on and so forth. So I had a feeling that I really doubt that they're cutting SNAP benefits from all veterans, or at least as high of a number as they claim that it is. Now, if you're a veteran and you're, let's say, 30 years old, you're already out of the military, you're into the workforce, you're able-bodied and everything, I don't know how it works because I'm not a veteran, but maybe perhaps you're just put into the same bracket as everybody else. If you make too much money, you don't qualify for SNAP benefits. I mean, that's just the way it is. But there are a lot of programs for veterans if you do fall on hard times. I mean, there's resources. I'd argue there's definitely more resources for veterans than your everyday run-of-the-mill American citizens, especially men. I mean, women, they've got a lot of resources too. So anyway, Bull, nobody believes your lies anymore. Can you share the exact verbiage from the bill that does this? See, I'm all for that. I mean, they might be willing to agree with them. When I read through, and veterans assistance is very important to me. See, they're actually curious. They actually really want to know. Like, point to it in the bill where it's cutting veterans out of the equation. It's almost as if they're completely full of shit. So, anyway, let's head on to the next one here. Keeping my fingers crossed that I'm not going to lose power because it is crazy storming out there still. Lots of loud thunder. I'm looking at the microphone levels. It looks like it's not picking it up. All right, so where are we? Okay. Secretary Kristi Noem. Our brave ICE law enforcement are now facing a 1,000% increase in assaults against them as they risk their lives to arrest the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. These acts of violence are fueled by sanctuary politicians' rhetoric, vilifying our law enforcement. Absolutely. We will not and have not let this violence stop us or slow us down. Every day, our law enforcement continues to enforce the law and arrest the most depraved criminals, including pedophiles, terrorists, murderers, gang members, and sexual predators. Look, I'm honestly shocked that they're not just rounding up everybody who even attempts to assault them. If you interfere with them arresting anybody, you're interfering with an investigation. I mean, for local police, you can be arrested for that. If you're hindering a police investigation, why wouldn't that apply to federal agents? I would think federal agents would have more authority to do maybe a little bit above and beyond what local police would be capable of doing. I don't know. If somebody's throwing rocks at the feds, why the hell aren't they rounding them up and throwing their asses in jail? I don't get that. That's obviously a felony, assaulting a law enforcement officer. I just don't get it. I don't know. Maybe they are doing that. Just the way she worded that, it sounded like that they're just having to just deal with the violence from the public who show up, and they're not going to let that stop them. They're still going to go arrest who they need to, which of course they are. I just hope they ramp up more arrests for people who mess around with them. They need to be made an example of, that's for sure. So from the U.S. Army's, these soldiers saved lives. This is in regard to the shooting that just happened on August 6th. So Brig General John Lubas, commanding general of the 3rd Infantry, praised the soldiers who subdued the gunmen and administered first aid during the Fort Stewart shooting on August 6th of 2025, which happened in Georgia. So let's give this a listen.
We have 6 incredible soldiers behind us, but this is just representative of the larger formation. Once the shooter was identified and the threat was identified, we had soldiers that immediately raced, tackled that soldier, wrestled the gun away, subdued him. A second non-commissioned officer jumped on top and further restrained him until the police could arrive. And then simultaneously, no one hesitated. Most of these soldiers behind me and others in the crowd immediately
brave as hell.
applying first aid and most importantly stopped the bleeding. And when we spoke to the surgeons in the hospital, it was clear that the actions they took, primarily stopping that bleeding before they were loaded up in ambulances and quickly evac to Wing Army Medical, certainly saved their lives.
Wow, man, incredible, man. You gotta love it. A horrible situation, but that's just awesome that he took the time to recognize them and their swift actions. I do have the mugshot of the asshole who did that, and it's below. We'll get to that here in just a minute. I think it's only probably just a few posts down. So let's move on to the Senate Republicans. Families making less than $50,000 per year receive the largest proportional tax benefit in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Senate Republicans are delivering prosperity for all Americans. Just that typical political slogan. And I really feel for people who are making under $50,000 a year because it is really hard out here with the silent depression that some people say that we're living in. It's tough. Credit card debt's at an all-time high. Home mortgages are like what the average is like $2,600 or $2,800 per month that you have to make payments on, and that's for a 30-year mortgage, man. Plus new cars, the average payment for new cars is $740 a month. The average used car payment, which blows my mind, is $550 a month. Everything's just crazy expensive. We don't even have to get into groceries. I mean, that goes without saying. Everybody already knows that. It's gone up at least 30% since 2019. It's tough, man. A lot of paycheck to paycheck people who earn in that bracket they're suffering really badly. And most of them, if not almost all of them, are renters. And it's very difficult. All right, so from RT, Anita Dunn goes to Capitol Hill for an interview on the Biden probe. ICYMI. She has been very vocal against Sleepy Joe and his pardon of Hunter, only for the latter to slam her on recent podcasts.
He called you out by name. What did you think of that interview?
I got it maxed out.
Microphone there, but I do ask her if she thought President Biden was competent to run the country. I asked her why she or anyone else didn't tell the American people that he was having memory issues, that he was less energetic. That is according to a source familiar with Ron Klain's deposition. That's what he apparently told the committee. And I also asked her about the Hunter pardon. She's been public about basically rejecting it, saying that it wasn't a good idea from the Biden administration.
Obviously.
We are not expecting her to plead the fifth today. That is because
totally
she is
an
not
abuse of
here
power.
under a subpoena. She is here voluntarily, and historically, so far, we've had 10 people show
Hunter
up
Biden,
now.
he's got some fucking
7
mouth
of
on him.
them without a
An
subpoena.
interview he
and
did
they
a week or
have
two
gone
ago?
on
Good grief.
For about 5 hours. So we do expect this
No wonder
to
they
be
kept
a
his ass
long
on a leash.
deposition. Now, again, I said she has openly
Imagine him
criticized
coked
the
up.
former president's decision to
Come on, who we kidding he
pardon
was.
his son. To which Hunter Biden actually fired back in those recent podcasts he did, naming Dunn among his targets. And again, she's the 10th Biden staffer to come on the Hill. Earlier this week, former aide Bruce Reed defended the former president, claiming that his debate issues, his debate struggles were all caused by his stutter, and also claimed that the White House Dr. Kevin O'Connor dismissed those cognitive tests as meaningless. So again, we'll wait and see. She's in the room now. And again, this goes on for quite.
All right. Well, we'll see how that progresses. I'll try to keep an eye on that, see if anything comes out of that. Not sure. So we'll just move straight on to the Washington Examiner. Breaking: FBI approves John Cornyn's request to pursue runaway Texas Democrats. That's what my thumbnail featured. So we will check this out. All right. Washington Examiner. FBI approves John Cornyn's request to pursue runaway Texas Democrats. Posted today at 10:30 in the morning. Might watch this clip here. So the FBI will help lawmakers locate the runaway Texas Democrats who fled the state to deny Republicans a quorum needed to move forward in their redistricting fight, Senator John Cornyn, Republican of Texas, said on Thursday. involving the FBI in apprehending the lawmakers could boost hopes of getting them back into the state to reestablish a quorum and pass more Republican-friendly congressional maps. Look, they're going to be doing this for them. This is for you, Democrats, because if you don't come back, the Supreme Court, they're starting to get the ball rolling with regard to permanently removing them from their seats, in which case the governor will sign off on having a new election to replace them. They've already got the ball rolling with regard to that, and the governor said yesterday that they're moving quickly with that. So maybe not in the coming months, but like in the coming days, they're going to be looking into doing that, to permanently just kicking them out of Congress completely. So it's crazy, man. It's absolutely crazy. So I'm proud to announce that Director Kash Patel has approved my request for the FBI to assist state and local law enforcement in locating runaway Texas House Democrats, Cornyn said, and we're going to get paywalled as we usually do. A group of Democratic legislators left the state last week, taking refuge in blue states, New York, Illinois, Massachusetts. The FBI is now assisting Texas, and lawmakers could face scrutiny from a federal source inside of the limited powers Texas holds in other states. So let's see if it'll let me play this video. It might not let me. Looks like they might have linked it up on... No, that's not YouTube, is it?
President Donald Trump announced he has donated his first presidential paycheck of his second term to the White House Historical Association. In a Truth Social post, Trump said the funds
that
would
has nothing to do with
much-needed renovations to the White House, calling them improvements
That's all right. We'll let it
at
play.
levels not seen since its original creation. The presidential salary set by Congress is $400,000 annually with a $50,000 yearly expense allowance. Trump has a history of donating his salary, having done so during his first term to agencies like the National Park Service, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and Health and Human Services for COVID-19 research. In the same announcement, Trump falsely claimed he is the only president, aside from the late great George Washington, to forego his salary. In reality, past presidents like Herbert Hoover and John F. Kennedy, both wealthy, also declined and subsequently donated their salaries to charity. George Washington was paid $25,000 annually. The White House Historical Association
President
did
Trump,
not
you are
respond
wrong.
to requests for comment.
Interesting. A little bit of tidbit of information. John F. Kennedy, he donated his presidential salary too. That was interesting. All right. So let's head on to the next one. Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to keep an eye on that. I'm interested in that. So I'll keep an eye on Kash Patel's, his profile, his account, as well as the Governor Abbott's account as well. So I'm curious to see. Actually, at the end of this, if I have an extra minute, I might actually pull up his X profile and see if he's got anything else on the matter, because I'm just interested in see it. I mean, it's a hell of a drama that they're dealing with in Texas. All right. So nope, that's a little bit too large. All right, here we go. That's what she said. All right, here we go. Reagan Reese. Scoop. Trump is expected to sign a presidential memorandum on Thursday, ordering higher education institutions to hand over their admissions data in order to prove they are not engaging in affirmative action, a senior White House official told the Daily Caller. A fact sheet obtained by the Caller states that because universities failed to provide admissions data while using diversity statements and various other initiatives to circumvent the SCOTUS ruling, the administration is concerned over the continued use of racial preferences in the admissions process. Yeah, you can't do that, Democrats. I thought y'all were the ones who passed the whole non-discrimination, the Civil Rights Act, and all that stuff. Even though Republicans wrote the legislation, the Democrats decided to pass it themselves to score some brownie points. But it just keeps getting more and more ridiculous. Even though they claim the other side of being racist, says the side who's using racism to admit and not admit people into universities. That might be in that video that I had featured up I placed up at the very top. Trump might have actually addressed that during his press conference earlier today. The same one where he signed the executive order commemorating today as National Purple Heart Day. So this is from Charlie Kirk. Breaking, and this is the asshole right here. The Fort Stewart shooter, who is now in custody, is 28-year-old Army Sergeant Cornelius Radford. He did not use a military weapon. All 5 soldiers who were shot are in stable condition. 3 underwent surgery. And praise to God. Now, throw the book at this monster. Hell yeah. Get off my screen. All right, so next one from Homeland Security. ICE does not disappear people. This is a ridiculous lie that the media is peddling to demonize ICE law enforcement. Once an alien is transferred to ICE custody, the agency makes a custody determination based on bed space and ensures their presence for immigration proceedings or removal from the United States. Despite a historic number of injunctions, DHS is working rapidly overtime to remove these aliens from detention centers to their final destination, home. Additionally, illegal aliens in detention have opportunities to communicate with their family members and lawyers. The appropriate process due to an illegal alien with final deportation orders is removal, plain and simple. That said, DHS has a stringent law enforcement assessment in place that abides by due process under the U.S. Constitution. Why does the media continue to fall for the sob stories of illegal aliens in detention and villainize ICE law enforcement? I don't know, because 79% of the public, they're in favor of mass deportations. And you got 20 plus million. I've seen the numbers. They're all over the place. I've seen 10 million that have flooded the country. I've seen 50 million that flooded the country. But one thing's for sure, the reason why our rent has gone up substantially is because all of these illegal immigrants, they got to live somewhere. The reason why our food has also increased so substantially is because they got to eat something. And the reason why our utilities have also gone up is because there's now 20, 30, 40 million other human beings who are tapped into our utility systems with our water and our electrical and everything else. That's why everything has gotten so expensive, in part. There's other reasons, but that is definitely a major reason as to why, because these are all human beings too. Democrats like to make that extremely obvious, and because they're human beings, they're a burden on our entire system because our country wasn't set up to allow tens of millions of other human beings to pour into the country virtually overnight. So once we get rid of as many as we possibly can, send them back, and then they can come back the proper way. That way we can have an infrastructure that is willing to keep up with the amount of people that are coming in at least in a stable process, as opposed to just opening up the freaking floodgates. So anyway, that was in response to the, the Wall Street Journal? Is that who that is, I think? So the migrants vanish into opaque ICE detention system. Yeah, dude, just the framing, man. They're fucking evil. So this is from J.D. Vance about 10 hours ago. Watching the press conference from Fort Stewart, and I'm just incredibly proud of the hero soldier who tackled the gunman and saved lives. We are incredibly blessed to have men like these who respond quickly in moments of violence and chaos. They are the reason civilization exists in the first place. My prayers go out to the victims of this shooting. Join me in praying for their fast recovery. Amen. So this is from Economic Research Service. Most retail food prices grew more than slowly in the first half of 2025 than average mid-year rates from 2005 all the way up to 24. Learn more in this chart of note. So they've got fresh vegetables, fats and oils, and then it goes all the way down to eggs. So the historical average is in gray, and 2025 is just the 2025 rate. And it looks like fresh vegetables went down a bit. Fats and oils a little bit, but everything else went up. Cereals, other foods, dairy products, fish and seafood, poultry, fresh fruits, those all didn't really go up a whole lot. Non-alcoholic beverages a bit. Meats, sugars and sweets, and eggs went up damn near 40%. I believe that the top egg companies, there's 4 of them, maybe 5. I think there's 4 major egg producers. They're under investigation because the supply of eggs during that whole bird flu, avian flu, whatever the hell it was that they were telling us that was going on, and they had to jack up our eggs to like $10, $12 a carton. The supply of eggs month over month, it only dropped by about 20 million. And in total, on average, the number of eggs that they produce on a monthly basis is 780 million eggs per month. And at the peak of this avian flu, bird flu, whatever, the supply had only dropped by 20 million. It wasn't cut in half, didn't drop by 80% or anything crazy like that. So in essence, the total supply of eggs across the country over the last number of years, going back years and years, hasn't hardly changed at all. But yet they decided to price gouge the hell out of the American people. And I believe that there's an investigation into that because they should be sued. Plus, during that period of time, the shareholders as well as the executives, they saw as much as 300% bonuses during this period. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were paid to the executives and the board members and the shareholders during this whole egg skyrocketing debacle that we dealt with. So that should piss off anybody. and everybody. All right, so let's move on to the U.S. Commerce Department. President Trump is harnessing the power of tariffs to bring semiconductor manufacturing to America. Big tech companies are investing billions to build their chips in America. These investments will create new jobs and secure the supply chain and unleash American innovation to the world.
Here's the most fun statistic. AI
that's loud. My bad.
spending. So spending on AI last quarter exceeded consumer spending for GDP. So we've got so much investment coming into AI that what the president's done is he's harnessed it. He says to Apple, you've got to build here. Meta, you've got to build here. NVIDIA, you've got to build here. TSMC, you've got to build here. I just said $2 trillion worth of investment right then. So the president is harnessing all of this investment coming into America. They're going to be building plants in America. You know, TSMC announced $200 billion in Arizona, Micron, $200 billion in Idaho and New York. I mean, this is huge, and it's going to be across America. So Donald Trump is grabbing it and bringing in all that investment into America. And basically what he said is, you've heard him say it time and again, if you build in America, you're not going to pay a tariff. And what he did is he said, I'll give you the leeway if you're committed to building in America, and only if you're committed to building in America, then he'll hold off on your tariff. Yep. But if you're not building in America, 100% tariff. Yeah. Pay or perform in America.
So, and plus these countries, they're protected by American security and the armed forces and things like that if they can produce everything in-house. And plus, we can better protect our proprietary information. So these advanced chips that they're looking to be building, inventing, and so on, they can be protected inside the country and not be stolen by the CCP and the Russians and everyone else who's looking to get ahead in the whole AI boom, the AI race. And I actually read earlier today that Elon Musk predicted that OpenAI, ChatGPT, OpenAI, same thing, if I'm not mistaken. He is expecting that company is going to surpass Microsoft in terms of valuation in the coming years. So apparently OpenAI is about to really skyrocket in value. I don't know if it's a publicly traded company, and I'm not an expert. I'm not a financial expert, not giving out any suggestions or anything. I'm just repeating what Elon Musk said earlier today. You can go to his X account and you can check it out for yourself. But anyway, that's what he said. So from Rep. Mark Harris, quote, "We the people," end quote, means citizens, not invaders. Counting illegal aliens in the census disenfranchises Americans and rewards blue states for breaking the law. Let's get a recount ASAP. And that's in reference to Donald J. Trump's Truth Social account. I have instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern day facts and figures, and importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Let's go. From Rep. Warren Davidson, the Obama and Biden administrations both used bank regulation to target their political enemies. That they did. We must rein in this regulatory state to ensure discriminatory debanking can never happen again. And not only were those administrations employing those tactics, so were leftist activists and progressive activists during COVID in 2021, 22. What they would do is that if some social media influencer, conservative influencer, somebody who's making waves in conservative circles, what they would do, if they were able to find their private banking information, not their accounts, just who they banked with, that's all they were concerned with. What they would do is they would distribute that information to thousands of foot soldiers, for lack of a better term, and they would blow up that bank saying, "You got to get rid of them. How dare you? You're doing business with a Nazi," and so on. And they would get inundated with thousands of tweets and emails and phone calls from a relatively small group of people. So the bank believed that it was the whole freaking country that was blowing up over it, and they didn't want to deal with any fallout, with any negative press publicity. So they would close their account and they would send them the money in a check. And that's a lot of among a slew of different tactics that the left tends to do. So it's awful. It's horrific, man. You're messing with people's private lives, and nobody should ever do that. It's beyond messed up. So let's check this out.
Government has massive coercive power over the banks, And under President Obama, they termed this Operation Choke Point. So under Biden's administration, the last 4 years, they termed that Operation Choke Point 2.0, and it was all
Melania
the idea
was
that you could
deep
weaponize
bank?
government, use the power of bank regulation to steer the banks to act on behalf of whoever's in control of the government. That tells you have way too much government. We have to defang this regulatory state, and that's really what we're working on, is a choke point reform so that no administration can do that to their political enemies. And look, this isn't people being denied loans. This is like $1 billion a deposit. Who turns that down? Melania's case, I want to give money to foster kids, and people won't accept it from a charity.
Yeah,
I mean, this is
exactly.
crazy stuff.
That is incredibly messed up. I wasn't even aware that happened to Melania. That's crazy. All right. Wow. So from Rep. Mike Collins, again, for the National Purple Heart Day. On this day in history, 1782, George Washington created the Purple Heart during his time as the Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. He awarded it only to 3 soldiers during the Revolutionary War. The Purple Badge allowed soldiers to pass guards without challenge and have their names recorded in the Book of Merit. This award was forgotten until it was reinstated on Washington's 200th birthday in 1932. Today, the Purple Heart is awarded to soldiers who have been wounded, killed, or prisoners of war. It is the oldest American award for the armed forces, and I'm assuming that's among the first ever Purple Hearts that were handed out by President Washington. Very, very cool, man. History. All right, so Homeland Security. This is in response. I'll go ahead and show this first. So this is from Adriano Epsilot. IceGov locked me, and Nydia Velazquez and Rep. Dan Goldman between the fence and the building entrance of the Sunset Park Detention Centers as we tried. Where did it go? As we try to conduct our congressional oversight this morning, this blatant lack of respect toward the legislative branch is a deterioration of checks and balances, all while they hide their atrocities from the public. The people demand answers, and immigrants deserve humanity. Look, this is why they're reluctant to let these people in, because they have no good intentions at all. They're not in there to see if they're being treated fairly. They're not there to have an unbiased opinion as to what might be happening or how the process is being conducted in these facilities. They're just there to play politics, and no matter what, even if everything is squeaky clean, they've all got king-size beds with freaking canopies, and they've got their own bedroom furniture. It's like a 5-star lavish hotel in there, treated like freaking gods with 5-star meals and filet mignon and all that shit. Even if all that was happening, they would still say that they're being treated like animals, they're in cages, and the whole 9 yards. So they don't have any good reason to be there really in the first place, but I get it. Legally, they're allowed to go in and inspect the place. I get it, but let's check this out.
This is Congressman Adriano Espaillat. We're here to visit the detention center. We were greeted by a masked officer. We have been trapped in here.
He's got left-wing cameras pointing at him.
Agent.
He doesn't want to get doxxed.
No name.
That's one of the tactics that the Democrats tend to employ. They end up doxing people, and the next thing you know, mobs of leftists show up, and they try to firebomb their freaking houses.
We cannot determine who it is because he refuses to show his face.
Why do you want to see his face? How is that going to help you with anything in any way, shape, or form? Why do you want to see his face? We all know why he wants for him to reveal his face, so that way they could plaster it all over left-wing circles so they can send their freaking goons out after him to try to make him and his family's life a living hell.
So we're trapped here.
These people are fucking evil, man.
Supervisors here.
It's a real shame what the Democratic Party's been turned into.
We are duly elected members of Congress, and Section 527 allows us the oversight responsibilities to go in there and see what is going on and with the detention of immigrants. We know for a fact there's over 100.
Notice how they didn't start this press conference until they were behind these bars, because you know they're going to spin it. We've been locked inside. They've jailed us in here. They've unlawfully imprisoned members of Congress.
105 immigrants that are being detained here, and we have.
I can already see it, man. This is too easy.
Come here and have oversight over this operation. Again, we were greeted by a masked agent who refused to give us
Oh my
his
God,
name,
dude, enough of the fucking mask.
refused to
We get
show
it.
his face, and who
So what, man? The entirety of Congress, they wore masks all over the fucking place in 2020 and 2021. So what the hell is your point? Maybe the dude's got COVID. Maybe that's what he should say. I'm sorry, I've got a coronavirus and I'm possibly contagious, so I'm wearing the mask. Maybe they should just play their stupid games right back at him.
proceeded to lock the door, keeping us, in essence, incarcerated here because we cannot go in or out
Oh, you're so full of shit.
until we get further notice.
I told you, man, this shit's too easy. These Democrats are so fucking predictable, man. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, man. All right, so the Department of Homeland Security responded to this, and they said this is deeply unserious. The members were not trapped and were free to leave whenever they would like. In fact, the BOP, Bureau of Prisons, which manages this facility, had to close the gates to prevent the media from trespassing. Here are the facts. These members did not follow proper protocol and schedule their visit. Instead, they brought a gaggle of media to drive clicks and fundraising emails. Now, I know, according to federal law, technically, they don't have to, they don't legally have to make an appointment. However, with the influx of illegal immigrants and the added security and everything, they want to ensure their safety, which is why they prefer them to schedule their visit. That way they can take all the dangerous criminals. I don't know if they've got some general population thing going on. They just want to make sure the building's secure so that members of Congress can go in there, because God forbid one of them gets injured while they're in there. I mean, could you imagine the freaking horror show that'd be spread all over the mainstream media if one of these Congress members were to get, I don't know, sucker punched by an illegal immigrant? Because of course they're going to say that it was ICE Customs Enforcement who did it. He sucker punched me and he threw me in handcuffs and violated me in all kinds of different ways. I woke up and my pants were down. Oh my God, the horror. All right, anyway, so here's the facts. These members did not follow proper protocol and schedule their visit. So anyways, as ICE enforcement have seen a surge in assaults, disruptions, and obstructions to enforcement, including by members of Congress themselves, any request to tour processing centers and field offices must be approved by the Secretary of Homeland Security. These requests must be part of legitimate congressional oversight activities. ICE officers have seen an 830% surge in assaults. Visits to and by the way, this surge in assaults is from illegal immigrants, by the way. That's where that number is coming from. Not just the left-wingers who are out on the street throwing rocks at them. They're actually talking about getting assaulted by people they're apprehending, because remember, a ton of the people that entered the country are violent criminals, because most of Latin America, they emptied out their prisons all over the place and they sent them up here. So a lot of these people they're arresting, they're trying to get the most violent ones taken care of first. Then they can start working down the ladder. So that, I'm assuming, explains the high surge in assaults, 830%. So visits to detention facilities, requests should be made with sufficient time to prevent interference with the president's Article 2 authority to oversee executive department functions. A week is sufficient to ensure no intrusion on the president's constitutional authority. To protect the president's Article 2 authority, any request to shorten that time must be approved by the secretary. So there you go. All right, so let's move on to the next one here. So Pete Hegseth, getting back to basics means getting back to tried, true, and tough basic training. When we start soft, we get soft. From basic training to military academies, how we start determines how we finish the fight from top to bottom. No more weak, woke, and politically correct training. So they're saying that they got rid of basic training. Is that what the Biden administration did? They actually got rid of drill sergeants? For fuck's sakes. Oh my God. I would argue that anybody who joined the military under Biden who didn't have drill instructors and basic training, they probably would have to go through that process again, would you think? Just so they can get the adequate training that they did not get initially? I don't know, man. That's crazy. But anyway, you can find that on the Daily Wire. Let me see if they've got that linked down here in the comments, and I'll link it. Not so sure. I'm not seeing it. So I'll see if I can grab it and drop it in the description for y'all. So let's head down to the next one. U.S. Ambassador to NATO. As I told Bianca de la Garza on Newsmax, under POTUS's leadership, our NATO allies will purchase equipment and munitions sourced from the U.S. and bound for Ukraine, delivering life-saving support while strengthening the path to a lasting ceasefire. I'm definitely against it. I don't think we should be sending anything to Ukraine anymore. I think they should be dealing with it themselves. But hey, if Europe wants to buy it, if they want to pay for it, I guess we're going to sell it to them. But let's check this out.
But obviously, President Trump came up with a better idea, and that was to sell the best armaments in the world, which are American, sell them to our European NATO allies, plus Canada, and then they can provide those to Ukraine, so Ukraine can continue to defend themselves, stay in the fight.
Let Europe pay
but
for
again,
it.
it's all about bringing this war to an end and ending the killing, because too many people every single week are dying on the battlefield in a war that is not going to be settled on the battlefield.
Nope. It's pretty sad what's happening. So from Danny Cangiano, a great exchange between Kelly Mayer News and U.S. Dre Michael, Undersecretary of Defense, on the future of drone warfare and American drone dominance. And this is from News Nation. The Trump administration is cutting the red tape on drone warfare to stay a step ahead of Russia and China. Emil Michael, the Pentagon's drone chief, sits down exclusively with News Nation's Kelly Mayer News to highlight how the administration is taking U.S. warfighting into a new age. So we'll check out the clip here, and I'll click the link so I can drop it in the description for you. So here we go.
It's so different when you talk about it from your grandfather's military to today. So can you talk a bit about how this technology has evolved and how it's changed how we handle war or serve in the military?
World War II, we were talking about putting humans on the front line, all the way on the front line. And what you saw even in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars is we started to use some drones, some unmanned capabilities. We actually had something called a Predator drone in 2009
I remember reading about those.
And that was about $25 million, and it could kind of stay in the air about a day. Today, we have these systems which are about $2 million, 1/10 the price, and they could stay in the air for about 9 days.
Oh, wow. Holy shit.
And you see the advancements that have happened in Ukraine with most of the casualties coming from these drones. It's sort of becoming the new front line.
Dude, those Ukrainians, man, they're getting ruthless with those little drones. What they're doing, they're buying these like little Amazon drones that only cost like couple $100, and they're strapping freaking bombs onto them, and they're flying them into Russian soldiers. They fly it because it has some sort of a trigger on it that's like it's like an impact trigger or whatever, and they fly them straight into a soldier, and it collides with the soldier, and it detonates, and it blows them to bits. It's freaking ruthless, man. Anyway, I guess if you really want to go digging for it, they've got some of that footage on YouTube. You're not going to see blood and guts. You're just going to see the camera from the drone, it flying into soldiers, and then the screen just going to static. So, all right, so let's head back here, and we're almost done here. So this is from JD Vance. This is hilarious. Looks like South Park is at it again. Well, I finally made it, and this is posted from South Park. Welcome to Mar-a-Lago, #South Park. So it looks like they might be doing an episode like Saddam Hussein. Remember back in the day with the Saddam Hussein? I'm sure he's probably still in South Park from time to time, but how they take his actual face and they put it on a cartoon body. So I was a little disappointed to see this, that they're not going to do the whole Mr. Garrison as President Trump again. I thought that was kind of hilarious, and I thought that would have been a perfect time for him to bust out Mr. Hat, but instead of Mr. Hat, it'd be Mr. Vance. I don't know. I thought that would have been a clever idea, but whatever. So that's actually going to do it for today, and I'll see if I can grab that Daily Wire article. Honestly, like I'm almost an hour and a half right now, so I don't have time to get into this top one here that I grabbed earlier. The remarks that President Trump delivered today. But what I'll do, I'll hop over to YouTube and I'll see, I mean, of course, we're already on YouTube, but currently as I'm recording this, I'm not. But I'll jump over on YouTube. I'll see if I can find it on there. I'm sure it's on there somewhere, probably on the White House's channel. And I'll link this in the description too. I'll put it up at the top on the list of links that I put in the description. I'll just put this up at the top if anybody was interested in checking it out. My apologies. It's a little long. I'm already going over time. I still got to cook dinner, man. It's almost 9 o'clock, man. I got to get going. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll be back with another one tomorrow. And until then, thanks a lot for watching, and God bless America.